From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
This is the AT&T Network, a living, breathing intelligence bringing people together to bring new ideas to life.
Look, that's so simple.
In here, the right minds from inside and outside the company come together to work on an idea, adding to it from the road, improving it in the cloud, all in real time.
Good idea.
It's the AT&T Network, providing new ways to work together so business works better.
Creating a financial safety net can seem like an impossible goal. Complicated, intimidating, something other people get to do. But once you take the first step, you'll find there's nothing standing in your way. MetLife. I can do this.
Issue 1, Bin Laden redivivus.
My fellow Americans, we've traveled through more than a decade under the dark cloud of war. But over the last 3 years, the tide has turned. We broke the Taliban's momentum. And 1 year ago, from a base here in Afghanistan, our troops launched the operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Under cover of darkness, due to security concerns, on Tuesday, President Obama made an unannounced visit to Afghanistan. The reason for the visit was a treaty signing with Afghan President Hamid Karzai. The treaty outlines the terms of the U.S.-Afghan relationship after NATO turns over security to Afghan forces in 2014, 2 years from now. The treaty allows for U.S. troops to be based in Afghanistan until 2024, 10 years after the turnover. The U.S. invaded Afghanistan in late 2001 and routed the Taliban regime that shielded bin Laden as he plotted in Afghanistan the 9/11 attacks. 3 years ago, in 2009, to counter a Taliban resurgence, Mr. Obama ordered a surge of 33,000 U.S. troops into Afghanistan. That would bring the total to more than 100,000. This coming October, 22,000 will come home, leaving some 78,000 U.S. troops in place in Afghanistan.
10,000 troops were removed from Afghanistan in December, 4 months ago, leaving 68,000 in place today. This week's U.S.-Afghanistan treaty expires in 2024, 12 years from now. After that, it is speculated that a U.S. residual military force of 24,000 may be left in place in Afghanistan indefinitely in a situation a la Seoul, Korea. Mm-hmm. You understand the math there? What do you think about that?
Well, the math, there's 90,000 troops in Afghanistan now. When they pull the 22,000 out, it'll be 68,000. But that's not going to be till the end of September. But let me say this about President Obama. He flew 14,000 miles basically for a photo opportunity to give a speech for the American people at 4 a.m. in the morning in Afghanistan. However, he is very skillful here. I think he's done an excellent job politically in the sense that he says, look, there's peace, all our troops, they're going to be coming home, the combat troops are coming out, which is what the country wants. At the same time, we're going to have a residual force, which means I am not cutting and running. So I think he helped himself there, and it would have been a real coup, John, but I think the crass, unseemly exploitation of the killing of Osama bin Laden, that was, an end zone dance, I think severely damaged his message. He had an excellent message, and they tried to exploit it too hard.
It was the anniversary of his killing.
But listen, why don't you look at how the troops, SEAL Team 6, handle it with dignity. They went in and killed him. They go back.
Oh, come,
and here
come,
he
come,
and
come,
Biden
come.
are up in the owner's box.
Is he really pressing that too hard?
Absolutely, John. I'm with you. It was the 1 year anniversary. The networks did specials. People are marking this. President flew over there, geared to the American people, the timing, and Karzai, the Afghan president, was willing to do this signing ceremony at 4 a.m. in the morning.
And everybody was in a practically nervous wreck doing it. You remember the Situation Room and the photography on that?
The taking out of Osama bin Laden. And that was a decision that the president didn't just check a box.
He could have lost SEALs over there?
He campaigned on going after Osama bin Laden. He said if he had actionable televisions, he would go into Pakistan. It was a controversy between him and Hillary Clinton and in the general election. But what he's doing is he's trying to build an infrastructure in Afghanistan to leave whoever the next president is, Republican or Democrat, so we can have our drones based there, so we can have a CIA presence, and not just abandon the country the way we did in the 80s.
Oh, let me move this forward, and I'll turn to you, Mr. Kearney. Okay, the political angle.
There was also a political motive, perhaps, for Mr. Obama's trip, to engage in some chest thumping over bin Laden's demise. The week began with an Obama Democratic ad questioning Mitt Romney's commitment to hunting down al-Qaeda's founder, in contrast to Mr. Obama's accomplishment in bagging bin Laden. The Democratic ad featured this Mitt Romney quote from 2007. Quote, "It's not worth moving heaven and earth and spending billions of dollars just trying to catch one person." Unquote.
Question: on Wednesday, President Obama told NBC the day bin Laden died was the quote, unquote, most important single day of his first term in office. How much does President Obama stand to gain by resurrecting Osama this week?
Well,
Tim Kearney.
I agree with Pat that there was something unseemly about the touchdown dance. He wasn't going over there to just sign this treaty. This treaty actually didn't have very much specifics. There's been lots of complaints about Afghanis. Even the New York Times editorial page was complaining there wasn't enough specifics. So the purpose of this trip was the touchdown dance. As far as a political benefit to Obama, it doesn't primarily sort of help him. I don't think there's an Osama bump, but it does take away, it neuters a Republican attack that Obama isn't strong enough on foreign policy, because this is a blow at the heart of al-Qaeda.
Maud.
Well, you remember when Osama bin Laden was finally killed, his popularity jumped about 12 points. And I remember saying then, and feel that today too, in a couple of months it'll all go away, because the overwhelming issue is going to be the economy, and that's what people are going to be focused on. And I will also say that there's now a problem with Obama. I mean, he came into office speaking in poetry, and then he began governing in prose, and now he's campaigning and advertising copy. Everything is a promotion of all that he is doing, and I don't think it's appropriate. And by the way, what he did and how he did it, they disclosed certain sources and methods of how they did that operation. One of them was really fascinating. There is how did they find out it was Obama? Through the DNA. They had a doctor going around, a local doctor, going around checking for some kind of epidemic, and they took blood in that process, okay? But that guy's now in jail, and so are the other 5 people, locals, who helped him, because we disclosed the way we did it. That is something that we should not have done.
That was they figured that out a long time ago. That gentleman has been in jail for a long time, and the Secretary of Defense has been trying to pressure them, and the fallout from that has been difficult relations with Pakistan. So there is a cost, but overwhelmingly, it's a positive.
Let's find out how well Mitt Romney has been treated in this. Let's look at what Mitt Romney actually said in 2007 about the hunt for Osama bin Laden.
Quote, "I wouldn't want to concentrate on bin Laden. He was one of many, many people who are involved in this global jihadist effort. He's by no means the only leader. It's a very diverse group. Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, Muslim Brotherhood, and of course different names throughout the world. It's not worth moving heaven and earth and spending billions of dollars just trying to catch one person. It is worth fashioning and executing an effective strategy to defeat global violent jihad, and I have a plan for doing that." Unquote.
In the Obama advertising, pro-Obama now, they are pulling one sentence out of that total quote. Given Romney's full statement, the question is, was the Obama and is the Obama campaign ad a cheap shot?
It is a distortion. That is exactly right. Look, Joe Biden sat in that meeting, as did Gates in the meeting, and they said, we don't think you ought to risk this. Now, what you're going to find when you got Osama bin Laden, he's in Pakistan. Do we send in helicopters? Do you shoot him? There's a lot of things that go into it, John, that you cannot know if you're not there. I think it's a cheap shot at Romney. Romney was saying, look, we're going after him. If he was presented with the same circumstances, he said he would have done it.
Thou protest too much. You're really worked up over this. It's a good ad. Frankly, if they ran the whole quote, I don't think it changes the substance of it at all. And did anyone
come.
Completely changed it.
Really, Eleanor?
He was saying that Al Qaeda is not just one man.
He said he wouldn't move heaven and earth to go after one man.
One sentence
that you have to
about
attack
7
Al Qaeda.
sentences.
This president has also attacked Al Qaeda. He's really driven an arrow through the heart of that organization.
Right.
And when you cut the head of the snake off, you make a big difference. Also, Mitt Romney was in New York delivering pizzas to first responders to mark the anniversary of Osama's death. He's trying to edge in the photo op.
You don't think this is being exploited in an unseemly fashion?
There are cheap shots in this world. Issue 2, Chinese misfortune.
The United States raises the importance of human rights and fundamental freedoms because we believe that all governments do have to answer to citizens' aspirations for dignity and the rule of law, and that no nation can or should deny those rights.
Tread cautiously. That's what U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton did in Beijing on Thursday by not mentioning head-on in front of her hosts the case of activist Chen Guangcheng. Chen is the Chinese activist who arrived at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing last week seeking American help. He had come from the eastern coastal province of Shandong, where he had been under house arrest since ending a 4-year jail term in 2010. Chen is 40 years old and is a pioneering self-taught lawyer who advocated on behalf of women subjected to forced abortions and forced sterilizations, policies undertaken by the Chinese government to keep its enormous population in check. Reportedly, in March, Chen escaped his captors by scaling a wall, meeting a car, traveling over 300 miles with a foot injury to Beijing. Making the story more remarkable is that Chen is totally blind. The American embassy protected him for 6 days. Then on Wednesday of this week, Chen emerged with U.S. Ambassador to China Gary Locke and was whisked to a nearby hospital for treatment of the injury sustained during his escape. American officials say they only brought Chen out of the embassy after receiving a promise from Beijing that he would not be harmed. Chen had agreed with his American host, they say, to stay in China as long as he could continue his education and reform work safely. But after arriving at the hospital, Chen changed his mind. Chen now says American diplomats left him alone at the hospital with no protection. He says he fears for the safety of his family, his wife and 2 children, and for himself, and he now wants to leave China. To President Obama, Chen had this message, quote, "Please do everything you can to get our whole family out," unquote.
Question, how does everyone save face here? I ask you, Mr. Carney.
Well, I think the Obama administration really has to hope that everything turns out right because they initially mishandled this. Chen said that his quote to the CNN interview was, "The embassy kept lobbying me to leave the embassy and go back out there." And so if the whole situation doesn't turn out right, then it's going to be impossible for the administration to save face. You save face, though, by instead of making it an asylum case, having it be what the administration is trying to do now, which is to make sure that he's coming back here to visit the United States.
He may go to NYU.
Well, at the time that we're recording this program, it looks like they've stitched together a deal where he'll leave with his family and attend NYU. And frankly, the Chinese government does not need this. They have a leadership battle going on. The foreign ministry is at odds with the security apparatus. The foreign ministry apparently was working with the U.S. Embassy. Then he got in the clutches of the of the security people, and he panicked and apparently wanted something different. But for a repressive society, he called the Republican Congress. He's been talking to every reporter imaginable. I think the Chinese government is going to let him out in the hopes of diffusing this, and frankly, that's a win-win for both the Obama administration and China.
But the American embassy really handled this horribly. This guy was told, either by embassy officials or the Chinese, that if you don't come out of there, we're going to beat your wife to death. Okay? Then the embassy says, the Chinese have given us assurances everything's going to be fine if you walk out the door. So they entrusted this guy to the Chinese. Now, I agree with Eleanor to this extent. The Chinese do not want a hellish problem with this guy. They certainly don't want him beaten or killed or something like that. I think they want him out of the country, so there may be a win-win situation.
Let me put this question to Mr. Zuckerman. In the standoff over Chen, was the resolution a win-win situation, or did either side blink? And if so, which side blinked?
Well, at one point, both sides have blinked. But I think if you're at the position now where he's going to be allowed out of the country with his family, and this is what he's asking for, and I think the Chinese want him to leave with his family, then it'll be a win-win situation for both of them. One will solve a domestic problem, and we will solve a foreign affairs problem.
The answer is that China blinked. Issue 3, Mitt's mate.
He valued me, he treated me as an equal partner, and we are equal partners today, and in everything that we do. We care for each other, we love each other, and we're there for each other. So that's why I'm willing to go out and do these crazy things.
Ann Romney, wife of Republican candidate Mitt, recently took the platform in her first solo appearance at a political fundraiser, Connecticut GOP's Prescott Bush Awards dinner, before 800 guests. According to attendees, her address was both personal and at times emotional. Mrs. Romney spoke in detail about raising her children and doing so while dealing with her own serious illnesses, breast cancer and multiple sclerosis, MS, diagnosed 14 years ago.
There were days where I thought my only future was going to be in bed and too weak to even have any kind of a normal life. He would remind me all the time that my job was more important than his.
Mrs. Romney's quote-unquote job was the subject of a back and forth with Democratic National Committee strategist Hillary Rosen, who had told CNN that Ann had quote-unquote never worked a day in her life. Mrs. Romney had responded that raising 5 boys was quote-unquote hard work. She alluded to the episode.
I know what it's like to finish the laundry and to look in the basket 5 minutes later and it's full again. I know what it's like to pull all the groceries in and see the teenagers run through, and then all of a sudden all the groceries you just bought a few hours ago were gone. Some people think that I didn't work, but those were things I was very busy doing.
He also described the rigors of the campaign and how those grueling schedules and commitments the price candidates' families must pay was worth it, or whether it was not worth it.
I said, I only want to know one thing, and that is, Mitt, if you get the nomination, which isn't easy, and number 2, if you beat Barack Obama, which isn't going to be easy either, can you fix it? I need to know, is it too late? Has America gone over the proverbial cliff, and we don't have time to turn things around? And he said, no, it's getting late, but it's not too late.
How effective a political asset is Ann Romney to her running mate, Mort Zuckerman?
Oh, listen, she's wonderful on this kind of a presentation. I've never seen her speak this way. I mean, you can't help but be moved by it, and also it's thought-provoking in a very positive way for her and for her husband. To me, it's a total win for him, and I think she's going to be very effective as a campaigner, and she was helped, obviously, by what Hillary Rosen said.
And there's lots of, there is a culture war in this campaign, and the left is trying to say, the Democrats are trying to say there's a war against women, and abortion is going to be a subtext. It's a huge part of the Democratic fundraising thing. And the Hillary Rosen episode, where she said that this Democratic DNC advisor said that being a stay-at-home mom was not working.
Okay, there is a subtext. Now what?
She drives into that. She's very good, but you know where she helped huge was in the primary. I know lots of women who said to me, I could not imagine Callista Gingrich being the First Lady, but thinking about Ann Romney being the First Lady really warms my heart. So it at least isn't a negative on Mitt in the general, and I think was a big positive in the
she
primary.
is an extraordinary asset, but the question she asked her husband, Mitt, is it too late? I found that very penetrating. It's a question, frankly, a lot of us are asking about whether the Republicans, even if they win, can they do it really in the economy the way it's going? And I think it was just an excellent.
Wait a minute. How does she compare to the existing First Lady?
I think both these women are terrific, and Ann Romney is as natural a presence when she's before a camera as Mitt Romney is as a robotic a presence. So she really she relates, and I think.
What are those other good things you think about Ann Romney?
I don't have anything negative to say about Ann Romney, and I think Democrats and Republicans, too, should be really careful if you start pitting women against women. The gender gap is a lot more.
Now, wait a minute. You can pit man against man in politics. Why can't you pit women against women?
Because women who stay at home and women who go to work and all that, there's always been tension. But
don't get into Hillary Rosen country here.
You don't want to start that fight.
We've had our Eleanor Roosevelt. Remember Eleanor?
She was fairly controversial, according to Westbrook Pegler, right?
So there is the political angle here. Issue 4, this week's economic stats. The unemployment rate fell from 8.2% in March to 8.1% in April. The 115,000 jobs added in April were fewer than the 154,000 jobs added in March. The percentage of adults working for or looking for work has fallen to its lowest level in more than 30 years. Question, what do these numbers tell us about the U.S. recovery? Mort?
Well, they tell us we're in real trouble because we need 150,000 jobs just to take into account the new people entering the labor force. We haven't done that for any of the last 4 or 5 months. What's more, the only reason the unemployment numbers have gone down as a percentage to the 8.1 is because of the number of people who left the labor force. Somewhere between 350,000 and 450,000 people left the labor force this month. It was several hundred thousand the last month. The real unemployment numbers are much worse than those numbers. It's closer to 15% because these only measure people who have applied for a job in the last 4 weeks when most people have been out of a job for 6 months and 3 weeks.
Is the bad news increasing month by month?
It has been. Yes, this year it's now beginning to quote Pat, it's not a quote, but to mimic him, it was going a little bit more strongly, and now it's really heading down, and I think we're going to have a very difficult summer in the economy.
Do you want to respond to this mimicry?
Let me respond. That's right. I think what President Obama was doing, this thing was moving up slowly and steadily, but it was going up. And there was a real measure sort of optimism. It's not going up the way we'd like to see it, but it's going up. This, John, is like a plane where you're moving up and suddenly we all get that sick feeling that we're losing altitude again. These were sickening numbers that came out. The stock market reflected it. It was down 150 points in a couple of hours after the numbers hit. And I fear that this suggests that we're going to be going down, especially, John, you got 10 countries in the Eurozone that are now in recession, and you got Spain right on the brink of default.
Well, and you would think the message from Europe is that austerity doesn't work, that you've still got to goose these economies. And I think it's too soon to say the economy has bottomed out, but we're running out of runway to the election. And I think Romney has a real opportunity here. If he actually came out with a serious business plan, just calling for low deregulation, lower taxes, that's more of the same old snake oil, frankly. If he's a real businessman, he should have a business plan and we should see it. Instead, he's out there saying he would create 500,000 jobs a month if he were president.
Yeah.
Why should we believe that?
That runway simile was
getting short.
Very felicitous. Is that original?
I doubt it. It's original to me at this moment on the set.
Well, it's the engine versus the runway.
I've got another number for you.
You want to use that?
No. Most recessions after the bottom of the unemployment thing, after things start getting a little better, it's less than 12 months from the absolute nadir to things getting back up to where they were before it started.
Not a typical recession.
Even the 2001 recession, it took less than 2 years. Right. We're at over 2 years now. The curve is going up very slowly, and Obama has gotten his stimulus. He's gotten his quantitative easings. The fact of the matter is we don't know what else he has
knows
up his
what
sleeve.
to do. Exactly.
The
toolbox is empty.
The Eurozone is in the doldrums.
Yes.
In fact, the unemployment rate in Spain is 24%.
That's
what
right.
else? The youth unemployment is 50% in Spain.
That's right.
And that's pretty much throughout the bad story throughout Europe. Is that affecting us?
Well, sure, because number one, 20% of our exports go to Europe. Number two, we get a lot of tourists coming in from Europe. But more than that, what you have is a great deal of anxiety and nervousness in the business and financial world because they see what Pat is seeing. We don't know where the bottom is, but there is sure going to be a
one
crash.
big collapse, John. One
Right.
collapse like Spain,
And the whole
they
financial
could bring the
system.
whole thing down,
That's
and that
right.
could cost Obama the election. Joe Biden was right on that one.
Maybe Obama could
Well-
campaign on, hey, at least we're not as bad as Europe. Could be an upside for him.
Do you think this is very bad news for Obama?
Well, I think
I mean, the whole Eurozone situation coming over here.
Absolutely.
Is the recovery off track?
No, well, the recovery is off track even without the Eurozone, but that is going to accelerate. If Europe goes the way everybody thinks it's going to go, we are in real trouble here as they are in terrible trouble there.
Prediction, Pat.
President Sarkozy's career ends on Sunday, John, and there will be a crisis in the European Union because the socialist candidate will confront Merkel on expansive policy. And in the June elections, the big winner is going to be Marine Le Pen and the National Front because Sarkozy will be gone.
And the Eurozone is in peril. Helena.
Judging by Obama campaign ads already running in Virginia, Obama is going to aggressively frame Mitt Romney's job creation as sending jobs overseas.
Tim.
Richard Lugar's career is going to end on Tuesday. He's going to lose his Republican primary in Indiana to Richard Murdoch, the state treasurer, and Murdoch, I think, will win the general election also.
What?
Well, the very weak employment numbers that just came out really now tell you that we're going to have a very weak summer in terms of the economy, and it's still going to be an even larger issue than we've all been predicting. I think we're going to see unemployment really be hurt.
Newt Gingrich will be offered a job with Mitt Romney's administration, and Newt will accept the position. Feliz Cinco de Mayo. Bye-bye.
You'll soon
This is the AT&T Network, a living, breathing intelligence bringing people together to bring new ideas to life.
Look, it's so simple.
In here, the right minds from inside and outside the company come together to work on an idea, adding to it from the road, improving it in the cloud, all in real time.
Good idea.
It's the AT&T Network, providing new ways to work together so business works better.
Creating a financial safety net can seem like an impossible goal. Complicated, intimidating, something other people get to do. But once you take the first step, you'll find there's nothing standing in your way. MetLife. I can do this.